Now, this session is on the growth challenge, and before I introduce the speakers and we actually get into the session, I'd like to take the opportunity to share with you a little about our organisation. CPA Australia is one of the world's oldest and largest accounting bodies, with more than 150,000 members across 121 countries. Our core services to members include education, training, knowledge exchange, networking and advocacy. And for more than 128 years, we've been a thought leader for education and the profession, aiming to transform business and help create value and transparency for the communities in which we operate. Our emphasis on encouraging strong leadership across governments, regulators, industries and academia is shown by our actions and reflected in our membership demographics. We actively embark on major initiatives to proactively lead and influence the direction of meaningful reform in Australia and overseas. And again, it's our pleasure to be the principal partner of this great conference. Now on to the session. This session's a little bit different. We have three speakers, but the first speaker is coming in by video. So the first speaker is Mr. Angul Gurria, the Secretary General of the OECD. So he comes in by video. The other two speakers, again, I could say they need no introduction. One of them is after the video, we'll have Professor Ross Garnaut. Ross's bio is in your papers, so I'm not going to go through it, but other than a long list of achievements, he's also written a book recently, which I just happen to have a copy, which he kindly signed for me earlier today. So, Dog Days by Ross Garnaut, I highly recommend it, and if you want to get an autographed copy, speak to the author. And then we're going to hear from Professor Norman Gemmell, who's the Chair in Public Finance at the Victoria Business School at Victoria University of Wellington. Now, I'll introduce them one by one. So at this stage, I'm hoping that if technology works, we'll cut to the video. I'm going to come down and watch it, and then I'll come back up and I'll introduce the second speaker. So please join with me in welcoming everybody, and I'll see you shortly.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to join you for the Australia and New Zealand School of Government Annual Conference on Growing National Prosperity, the role of governments in the 21st century. Today, as we're slowly exiting from the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes, many governments are facing the question of how to promote more inclusive growth. And this is not surprising. In recent years, inequality has reached record levels in many countries. By 2010, the average income of the richest 10% in OECD countries had grown to 9.5 times that of the poorest 10%, a gap that is 30% bigger than 25 years ago. Now, in the same period, the top 1% took home 14% of all income growth in New Zealand, between 20 and 25% in Australia and the United Kingdom, and as much as 47% in the United States. Now, these are startling numbers, but the roots of inequality run much deeper than income. Inequalities pervade every aspect of our lives, with socioeconomic status acting as a powerful determinant of employment access, healthcare outcomes, and educational opportunities. This inequality has a tremendous impact in the lives of our people. Data from 14 OECD countries show that at age 30, people with the highest levels of education could expect to live on average 6 years longer than their poorly educated peers. Now, a very dramatic piece of data indeed. And this conference is an ideal opportunity to bring together policymakers, key actors, experts from different fields to discuss these challenges, to explore efficient ways of combating these challenges. Because, in the end, what is the central role of government in the 21st century? Well, for us at the OECD, the answer is pretty clear. It's about inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. The OECD's Inclusive Growth Initiative rises to this challenge. Our approach is fundamentally about growth, but it recognizes that a successful long-term growth agenda needs to ensure that all citizens have the opportunity not just to benefit from growth, but to contribute to growth. Now, by going beyond income, by measuring the impact of policies on people's well-being, we aim to give policymakers the tools to identify, to analyze, to construct strategies to promote equity and growth. Our research highlights that one of the best ways to tackle inequality over the long run is through effective education, through employment, through social policies. This calls for an emphasis on education, on skills program, so that students and workers will be equipped with the high-skilled jobs of the future, and that they will be supported by active labor market policies and by inclusive social welfare programs. Both Australia and New Zealand have implemented several successful policies in these areas. For example, the Gonski reform in Australia will expand educational opportunities by giving greater weight to socioeconomic variables in school funding decisions. While the planned Restart program will broaden the workforce by introducing incentives for businesses to take on older, unemployed workers, one of our very serious challenges, not only in Australia and New Zealand, but all over the world. Now, in New Zealand, the KiwiSaver scheme has encouraged people to work longer while strengthening the social safety net for retired citizens. These are important steps in the right direction, but more needs to be done to mainstream an inclusive growth approach at the heart of public policy. In fields as disparate as taxes or social benefits, the financial sector, or innovation. The OECD is ready to help you address these challenges, to ensure that the benefits of prosperity reach every family and every person in Australia and New Zealand. I invite you to keep inclusiveness in your minds throughout your presentations and throughout your debates, for there are many people falling behind, and there are a lot of people that are counting on you, because there's a lot that we can do about it. So I wish you a thought-provoking and very productive conference. Thank you.